So the Siamese Dream clean sound is not the tone most of us chase when we're chasing tones from Siamese Dream. We're usually going after the fuzz sounds. And I think that's understandable. Those big fuzzy sounds, those are the one that caught everyone's ears when Siamese Dream first came out. But the clean sounds, they're another rabbit hole into themselves. And I thought it was going to be a straightforward thing. But for some reason it's not. Well, you'll see. Hold on a second. Now what this is really about is those lace sensors in the guitar, the red, silver, blue. And there's some debate on the internet about that. Samui! And the debate's about which lace sensors. Now, some people think it's the gold ones, and I thought that was absolute garbage, but I'm not sure anymore, and I think you won't be sure either. Now, don't get me wrong, some parts are definitely the red, silver, blue. I'm positive of that, and I can show you some exact pieces. But then there's some parts where it might be gold, but then there's some parts where it's none of the above. I've been waiting to do this until I was back in Japan, and now I'm back here, which means we can finally do this. I needed access to my Marshall. Now, I've told you about my modified Marshall before, but let's talk a little bit more about it. So this is an early JCM 900 2501 combo. It's the 50-watt replacement for the JCM 800. Now, these amps had diode clipping in them, which made them a little fizzier than the 800s, and the clean sounds weren't exactly the same. You didn't have the option to go into a low input. You could only turn the gain down. I've never been a fan of JCM 900s, although some folks have gotten fantastic sounds out of them. So I found this amp at a store here in Japan called Hard Off. It's a second-hand shop, and they have a section called their junk section. Now this amp was sitting in the junk section, and it was around like $280, $300, and it was broken. The white guitar I used on the intro, I think I paid maybe $35 US for that thing at Hard Off as well. All I had to do was clean it. There's nothing wrong with it. It was considered to be junk. So I brought it home. It had some scratchy pots in it. It didn't have as much gain as it should have had. With the help of the people in the Marshall forums, I eventually figured out that the problem was, even though it was labeled as a Japanese model amp sent to the Japanese market, which should have a 100-volt transformer in it, it didn't. It had the US transformer in it. It wanted 120 volts. So I put a step-up transformer before it, and it started working normally. I cleaned all the pots, except for one that I had to replace, and then I started modifying the preamp. So the preamps in these amps are actually incredibly close to the JCM 800s. So I modified it to be the same as a 1984 and up JCM 800. All I had to do was remove the diode clipping and then reroute a couple things a little bit. And now it's identical. Then I added a switch where the gain knob used to be. These JCM 900s have two preamp gain knobs on them. One is a normal preamp gain knob, but the other one is more like a distortion knob. It controls the diode clipping. So I'd removed the diode clipping, so I removed that pot altogether. And then I put in a switch. And what this switch did was bypass the first half of the first tube stage, which is exactly what the low input stage on a JCM 800 does. The end result was an amp that sounded like a JCM 800. But there was a couple things that I wanted to do still. The JCM 900's power sections are extremely similar to the latter JCM 800 power sections. They have very similar power filtering. A couple mods had to be done to make them be the same, but nothing too major. The other change that had to be done was add different power tubes. This thing came with EL34s, and they just didn't have the headroom for doing the whole Siamese Dream thing. Now, the tube sockets didn't have space for KT88s, so instead I used something called a KT77. A KT77 tube is the same shape and size as an EL34, but its sound profile is more like a KT88. It's not quite as high wattage, but it still has high headroom, and the area that you'll notice there's a bit of a difference is they can have a little bit less low end, but it's not really something that's discernible. They're an extremely similar sounding tube to a KT88. It was a good option, and it turned out really well. The other big difference between a JCM 900 and a JCM 800 is a choke. A choke is essentially like a resistor, but it has a different response on pick attack, especially when you really push the amp. And as we know, Billy Corgan turns these things to 10, so we know it's going to have an impact. So I replaced the one resistor that had to be replaced with a choke instead. If you look inside of a JCM 800, you'll notice they have one extra transformer versus a 900. And that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the choke. If you're ever looking to buy a JCM 800 and you want to know how to tell which one's which, the original ones had vertical inputs. But then the ones from 1984 and onward, they had horizontal inputs. And these are the ones that Billy Corgan used. I've had the opportunity to play with this amp for a while now that it's been modded. And the really cool thing about it is it sounds more like the JCM 800 than the SC20 does. The SC20 is the 20 watt JCM 800 reissue. And I have one and I love it. Mine has KT88s in it and whatnot. They respond a little differently because of the way the power tubes are used. This JCM 900 has a wattage switch on the back. It allows you to switch between 50 watts and 25 watts. When it goes to 25 watts, the power tubes start operating the same as they do inside of an SC20, or at least very similar. When you set it to 50 watt mode, that's when the tubes are operating the same as they would in any other vintage Marshall. And it definitely sounds a bit better. So first, I started doing this in Thailand, and I bought a cheap guitar in Thailand, and I bought some gold lace sensors, and I swapped them into that guitar, and that was good. But ultimately I decided it wasn't the way to go. I figured it would probably be smarter if we used the same guitar, because I think some of you wouldn't like that. And while I don't believe wood makes a big difference on a guitar, I know that it's a debate for other folks, so I don't want to bring that part up. So we're going to use the exact same guitar. Now the wiring in this guitar is essentially a standard Strat. But after I'm done with this, we're going to talk about my little theory on the wiring inside of Billy's Strat. And I do have my theories. And maybe some of you won't agree with it, but I'm hoping after we're done here today, you might agree a bit more with me. Oh, Japan's cold. Right now, it's January. It's freezing. The word for cold in Japanese, samui. Oh, Thailand's not cold. All right, so Cherub Rock. This one I can go either way. And I think you all can probably hear the same thing too. But if I had to give the edge to any of them, I'm still gonna say silver and blue. Reason being is the gold lace sensors have a really big mid-range notch. And as the filter sweep occurs, you end up having too little mids, we'll just say, and it doesn't sound right. Both of them have the springiness, both of them are bright enough to do the job. In fact, the golds almost sound too bright. So I would say blue and silver here, but I could see an argument for it being gold as well. Today, it's the blue lace sensor. The gold's just too bright. But the big problem I'm having here is the amp. The amp used for the intro of today was not the Marshall. It was an old amp from the 50s or 60s. Probably one of those Valcos or something along those lines, but it's just a guess. Now, I do actually have some 50s style amps in Canada, and I think I'm gonna have to try this out while I'm there. My black guitar is still there with the lace sensors. I'll give it a shot and post a short at some point, just so we can see if it has the sound. The Verse is definitely the blue lace sensor. If you have a Strat with the red, silver, blues, you know that if you put it in the blue position and you have a Siamese Dream type setup, when you play rhythm with the blue pickup, it tends to be a little bit gritty. Now, I don't think that's the only thing going on in this section, and I don't even think it's really clean. If you listen to the Verse, specifically this part right here, there's a characteristic to that little hit on the high strings that it doesn't sound right with anything. In a couple of the pictures from the Siamese Dream recording era, there's a picture of one of those old, big maestro pedals. I showed you one. I showed you a phaser the one time in one of the videos. These things are massive. The one that I have access to is a Maestro stage phaser. That's not the pedal in the pictures. You can tell because the writing at the top is different. The one that I'm extremely sure it is the parametric EQ. Now, the parametric EQ from Maestro, that thing had a bit of a distortion setting, and it had some notches that were really interesting. Now, if I can't get my hands on one, I'll just build one to test with, but I think that might be the key to the clean verses on today. Hammer. So I did just the lead for a reason. There is so much going on that it's really hard to hear past anything. Now, most of the times when a clean lead is played on Siamese Dream, like here in Hummer, it's the neck blue pickup. No debate. That's a hill I'll die on. If you listen back to what I just played, it's pretty indiscernible when it switches from the original track to what I'm playing. Now, I panned everything off to the side a bit just because it is panned off to the side. The effects chain for that was just an RE202. That's the digital reissue of the Space Echo, which is what was used for the outro solo on Hummer. The gold sounds good too, but it's just not it. Soma's silver blue. Simple as that. And if you have any doubts, listen to this. It's just the first 3 notes. You hear that sparkle on the golds and the mid-range difference? It's completely different. It's not the right pickup combination. Soma is 100% red, silver, blue for the clean parts, at least on the left guitar. The right guitar, nothing sounded right for Luna. That one's actually annoying me. Now, to me it sounds more like a neck pickup sound. What I showed you here was the position 4, blue and silver and then the 2 golds. But the neck position sounds on those 2 were even further away. I don't think that's a Strat. I think that's probably a Jaguar or a Jazzmaster. And unfortunately that means I need guitars. Oh, I don't want to buy more guitars. I do, but I really don't. I'm trying not to succumb to buying more and more and more gear at the moment, especially while moving between countries. But I think I need a Jag and a Jazzmaster to really test this out with. Now, in Canada, I have a set of PAFs. I'm going to bring them back with me, and I'm going to put them into my Yamaha SG50. A Yamaha SG50 is Yamaha's 1970s Gibson SG equivalent. And it does the Les Paul thing well. So we'll revisit this when I come back from Canada, because I really want to revisit this when we come back from Canada. Even if James didn't play it, I think Billy probably used his Les Paul a bit. But again, I don't know. The intro to Cherub Rock, to me, is the biggest argument for the gold lace sensors. That's the one part that it sounds the most like those. But this comes back to how dark the blue and silver lace sensors are. And if your guitar is set up exactly as a Strat normally is, well, then it might sound a little too dark still. And this comes to my little theory about Billy's guitar. Take a look at this picture. Look at the second tone knob, or the first tone knob, however you want to look at it. But I'm specifically talking about the neck tone pot. It's always dialed down to 0. Now, in this interview here, Billy Corgan talks about how he has a tone pot disconnected in one of his guitars. He doesn't say which one, but he says he has it disconnected.
I never thought I would have used this space contour knob. I even thought about telling my tech just to get rid of it, like, you know, just use it as a dummy knob, because I've done that in the past with certain tone knobs and stuff.
So that's what I did with my red Strat. The golds I put in with stock Strat wiring, but the silver and blues, those are disconnected. Well, not disconnected. They're on a no-load pot. I tried this in Thailand with amp sims, and it just didn't quite sound right. But once I got back to Japan and tried it on a real amp, it started to make a lot more sense. So that comes to my little theory about the lace sensors. I don't think that tone pot's connected. And there's a very common 50s style mod where you take that first tone pot and you just connect it to the bridge. And the red is a very brash pickup, but when you have the tone pot controlling it, it becomes a lot more usable. And that even goes for when you're playing it through a big muff. There's this harshness that just goes away. I can't know, but I think that's potentially the answer. I think it's disconnected. Now, what do you think? Do you think that that tone pot's connected to something? Maybe it is, but I'll tell you right now that I get a lot closer when that thing is disconnected. The last couple of videos I put out was about pedals that I've been making. And one of them I was asking for new naming for a pedal. Now, one of you suggested a great name, the YKK, and that's a fantastic name. However, that company is quite litigious. And I don't really feel like being sued, but I still think it was the best name. And it had the most votes because it was the best name. I messaged you on the other video. I'd like you to reach out to me so I can send you a free pedal. I'm going to send you a Mr. Zipper. Now, someone also suggested Mr. Zipper. I think you should reach out to me too. I'm going to send you both a pedal. The cases are on their way now, so those will be manufactured within about 2 weeks, and then they'll be going out for sale. There's only going to be 25 of them. If there is a desire for more of them, I will build more. But I'm starting with a run of 25, and they're not going for sale until they're fully built. All right, anyhow, I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.